What's up, everybody? First off, welcome to our home. Hello. We're Modern Baseball.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Modern Baseball Trilogy series I'm working on. Last week we discussed their first album, Sports, and today we're going to be talking about the album that defined their career, You're Gonna Miss It All. So there's this thing called The Fest that takes place in Florida each year. Towards the end of 2013, Modern Baseball announced that they would be playing the Fest 12 along with 400 plus other bands in late October of that year. And it seemed like as soon as they made that announcement, the snowball began to form. Because right after the Fest announcement, they reached 10,000 likes on Facebook. And keep in mind, this is when Facebook likes actually counted for something, and it was the first moment where I went, wow, I think they're actually going to do it, as in become a big band. Just shortly after playing Fest, they announced their sophomore LP titled You're Gonna Miss It All, a record that I like to refer to as the pop-punk shot heard around the world. The album was slated to come out February 11th the following year via Run for Cover Records, and I know myself and many others were highly anticipating its release. But I'm actually getting a bit ahead of myself, so let's reel it back just a touch. It was a cold New Year's Eve night on the east coast of the United States of America. I'm not for sure which New Year's Eve it was, but it was presumably either 2012 or 2013. Modern Baseball and friends were watching the ball drop on TV, waiting for the new year to begin. And if you're not from America, we watch a ball drop in New York City to commemorate the new year. I'm not really sure why, that's just what we do. But as the ball was about to drop, Jake said, "Yo, I'm gonna go blow my nose," or something to that effect. And someone at the New Year's Eve get-together was like, "But you're gonna miss it all." If I had to describe You're Gonna Miss It All in 2 words, it's charming and it's catchy. They were able to take everything that worked on Sports, build upon it, combine that with way better production, more focused songwriting, and witty lyricism to create an outstanding sophomore album. I was a junior in high school when this album came out, and I think what made it so comforting for me to listen to at that time was the fact that both Bren and Jake were expressing things that I had felt for a long time but wasn't able to express clearly or articulate myself. Imagine being 16 years old and hearing someone that you look up to sing Home Alone on Friday Night, No Better Time for Exercise, and wishing you were still my girlfriend. As funny as it may sound, I remember hearing that line for the first time and thinking, wow, these guys really do get me. It meant a lot hearing it come from people that I had already formed a connection to through Sports and knew I could trust and relate to on the basis of them just being normal people that also experienced these things and were open about it. One of the best parts of this album being released was the fact that Brendan made a bet and said that if You're Gonna Miss It All hit 1,000 pre-orders, he'd shave an avatar arrow into his head. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they sold over 4,000 pre-orders in the first week or something crazy like that. I don't think anyone expected this album to be this big. Not the band, not the label, not the fans, not me, but all expectations were blown out of the water. I hate worrying about the future because all my current problems are based around the past, is the first line of the first track, Fine Great, sung by Brendan Lukens. You know when you hear the opener to an album and you just instinctively know that the rest will be great? That's how I felt when I heard this song for the first time, as well as Heat by Brockhampton. Fine Great is one of the most relatable modern baseball songs that they have to offer, as Brendan goes over what it's like to be used as emotional support by a girl that he likes that couldn't care less about him. Bren says that he hates when she calls him late at night just to check in to make sure that he's got nothing to be sad about, which may sound weird because if you like a girl, her calling you late at night in any context would be a good thing, a chance to talk. But as we go further into the song, we learn that this girl doesn't really want to talk about Bren's problems, but her problems. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but she goes about it in a deceitful way, revealed in the line, starting off with me that way that there's no way that I'll assume that you're wasting all of my time. She always starts by asking Bren how he feels before veering off into a dissertation about how she's sad that her Instagram doesn't work and that her friends bailed out on her, and it's made very clear that she has no serious feelings for Bren as a romantic partner, or even a friend for that matter, because the day that her friends bailed out on her was the day that her and Bren were supposed to hang out. He feels like he has to conceal his feelings altogether because at this point he knows her antics but can't stop conversing with her, and he knows that if he actually tells her his worries and his genuine feelings that he'll just get an apathetic, cookie-cutter response, because he's just her emotional dumping ground, and Bren can't seem to find a way out of this. The song begins and ends with a chorus, and at the end of each chorus, the lines read, "I hate having to think about my future when all I want to do is worry about everyone but me." He knows the status quo will just keep repeating itself over and over unless he does something about it, while simultaneously simultaneously knowing that he won't do anything about it because he's too afraid to upset her. In my younger years, I'd say I was a pretty stereotypical nice guy, so I had my share of situations like this. So this song will always stick with me in some way, reminding me that you shouldn't voluntarily be someone's punching bag just because they're pretty. Following Fine Great, we have a Jake song called Broken Cash Machine. I've been waiting for this song to come out for a while, because he played an acoustic rendition of this song months before You're Gonna Miss It All was even announced. Even though this may be the shortest song on the record in terms of length, it sure does pack a punch. And that's just one more thing that Jake has going for him as a songwriter. He can say a lot by saying little in a very short amount of time, leaving you wondering exactly what he was talking about. The first verse sets up for the chorus, detailing how Jake is all alone on a Friday night with no friends, no girlfriend, working a boring job, and fantasizing about how death and the world ending would be significantly better and more interesting than anything he currently has going. This song is similar to Tears Over Beers in the way that Jake demonstrates growth, so the first time we hear the chorus it goes, "Oh, why did I do that? Why does everything collapse, even when it's glued together?" And then he goes on to say, "Hey, why did I do that? I make everything collapse, even when it's glued together." At first he's questioning why he did the thing he did, followed by him questioning why things fall apart even when they are rock solid. But immediately after, he comes to the realization it's his fault, or at least thinks it's his fault. And then we enter the last part of the track. We hear the chorus again, but this time it's followed up with, "F you, why did I do that? It's your fault, I can't relax." And I think the "f you" part can mean a couple things, and I think Jake purposely set it up that way so a listener can interpret it in the way they want and pull their own meaning from it. While I do believe that the "f you" part could be directed at either the girl or his friends, I personally think he's talking to himself. Following the theme of the song, he realizes that these relationships ending and people wanting to get away from him is his own fault. So his "f you" outburst is expressing anger toward himself, wondering why he acts in the way he does. It also shows further lack of self-control once again, repeating, "Why did I do that?" And the "f you" exclamation just further drives the idea of not being able to control his actions that are pushing others away. Jake's songs work so well because a casual listener is able to follow the story and understand what's going on, but someone that's interested in analyzing the lyrics can dig deeper and find little things that lurk just below the surface level story of the song. Up next, we have the iconic song that is Rock Bottom. This track is the epitome of everything that is modern baseball. Barely crossing the 2-minute mark, it's fast, it's catchy, teeming with witty lyricism from Brendan, and touches on everything that makes the band what they are. An awkward, uncomfortable moment with a girl, eating pizza, skipping class, and having a carefree attitude. Rock Bottom is a testament to how well modern baseball knows their fan base. They're able to write songs that they know their fans will eat up without compromising their artistic integrity and staying true to who they are as people. I always found it really amazing how they were able to craft more of a commercially appealing sound with this album without losing even an ounce of their relatability factor. This record is just as relatable as sports, if not more so. At track 4, we have a Jake song called Apartment. Out of all the things that I could have noticed about this song, the first thing I took note of was the last line. I was wondering if maybe you wanted to hang out tonight, we could get dinner or something. The reason it stuck out to me was because he mentioned dinner on Sports in the final track Coles. He also alludes to getting dinner or food in their final album Holy Ghost on his song Every Day. And on top of that, Jake briefly ran his own small label called Family Dinner, where he put out the first Slaughter Beach Dog EP. I'm not really sure what to make of all that, but in this song at least, he's using it to say that he's finally worked up the courage to ask this girl to hang out and maybe make dinner or something. My favorite snippet from Apartment would have to be all the classes in high school we fell asleep in, but now I can hardly close my eyes, suggesting that it's kind of funny and ironic how it was so easy for him to fall asleep in class, but weirdly difficult to fall asleep in bed with the thought of this girl on his mind. Sharp as attack, but in the sense that you're not smart, just a prick, is one of the most memorable and funny sentences that you'll hear on this album. On the Old Gospel Choir, Bren starts out by saying that the girl's a prick or an a-hole, and then illustrates how she hurt him and the lasting effects of that relationship. But then immediately turns it around on himself, saying that he's not smart, just a prick, and he hurts those who show interest in him. As a listener, we're now conflicted because at first we feel kind of sorry for Bren that this girl is mean to him, but it's quickly revealed that maybe she had a good reason for doing so. He further confirms this when he says, "It looks like I'm way long overdue. I know what you meant when you said f you." To this day, I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to be more sympathetic to the girl or more sympathetic to Bren, but the more I go over it in my mind, I've come to the conclusion that we're just not provided with enough context to know whose side we should be on. And for me, that just makes the track even better and more ambiguous, prompting for many re-listens. Marking the halfway point through this album, we have Jake Ewald's third song on the album called Notes. Jake speaks in metaphors and vivid imagery to convey his affinity for this girl. My favorite of these would have to be "She Was My Trophy Shelf of Slip-Ups," which more than likely has a double meaning on purpose, knowing how Jake carefully crafts his words. I believe that Jake is saying that he's really good at screwing things up and she is the highlight of his screw-ups. But I also think it can mean that even though he goofed everything up so badly with this girl, he still enjoyed the time they spent together and views it as a net positive, despite it not turning out the way he envisioned it. Even at the end of this song, it's confirmed that Jake still has feelings for this girl, as the last line reads, "My long, dark hair," essentially sandwiching the song together because that's how we started it, with "Dear Long Dark Hair." Earlier I mentioned that I like to refer to this record as the pop-punk shot heard around the world. And while I have no doubts that this album would have reached soaring heights even without this event, there was one thing that really helped get it to the next level. It was this tour that gave modern baseball the opportunity to present "You're Gonna Miss It All" to the masses and gave them an insane opportunity to grow as a new band and win over an entirely new fan base. I've mentioned this in previous videos, so I won't dwell on it, but going on the Greatest Generation tour with the Wonder Years really opened things up big time for modern baseball. They were touring with pop punk's biggest and best upcoming acts, them being one of them, and absolutely stole the show. They were the opening band at each date, and when I saw them at the House of Blues, they were the best part of the night, and people went crazy for them, which was a really weird sight to see, as it's super rare for an opener to get that much positive attention. They opened their set with Bren saying hello and Jake announcing, "Welcome to Walt Disney Battle of the Bands 2014.
What's up, everybody? We're a band from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania called Modern Baseball.
Welcome to the Walt Disney Battle of the Bands 2014.
After seeing their onstage charm and flawless execution of their material in a live setting, I think everyone in the crowd knew that they were witnessing the start of something big. To this day, I've never seen an opening act get that type of response, especially a band from the exact opposite side of the country. To kick off the second half of the album, we get two Brendan tracks back to back. Charlie Black and Timmy Bowers. The choruses are the antithesis of one another, as the chorus of Charlie Black goes, "Wait a minute, cause I've been living more like a king without you, and I've been spending all your past killings on a bunch that I won't use." This is Bren reflecting on his previous relationship and coming to terms with the fact that maybe it wasn't such a tragedy after all, as he now feels good about himself and is able to have an excess of funds that he can spend on stuff that he doesn't need. It doesn't work like this all the time, but often after a breakup, the guy convinces himself that he's better off, happier, and in an even better place without his previous relationship. This is usually just a coping mechanism that helps numb the pain of the harsh reality of you losing your love. I think Charlie Black is the beginning of the grieving process for Bren, and Timmy Bowers is how he feels down the road of the grieving process. Timmy Bowers is slower, softer, and repeats the same lines over and over to emphasize the way that Bren is feeling. "Wait a minute, because I've been living more like a piece of without you, and I've been spending all your past killings trying to drink my way out of this groove." Before, he was living like a king without her and using all that extra cash to buy unnecessary items, but now he's living more like a piece of garbage without her, using all the extra capital he has to buy booze to alleviate the intense negative emotions he now harbors as a result of his denial about how he actually felt in the first place. Going to Bed Now might be one of the funniest songs on the record, as Jake talks about how he'd literally rather force himself to bed than shake the hand of one of his friends that he views as stuck up. His passive aggressiveness is at an all-time high in this song, and it's just really funny and entertaining to hear because it's pretty clear that Jake is a kind, reasonable person, so someone must have really ticked him off good to write a whole song about it. While this track is likely about one specific person, I believe it serves as Jake's commentary on rich, stuck-up kids as a whole. This part in verse 1 has always cracked me up. "What could a lowly peasant being like myself offer a perfect, pleasant savior of humanity, redeemer of us sickly, sinning hillbillies? Attention." Sometimes when a person has all of the material things that they could ever want or need, all you can give them is attention, something that can't be bought. Up next is Your Graduation, and I know there's not a lot that can be said about this track that hasn't been said already, and I don't want to bore you, but there are a couple things that I want to point out before moving forward. First and foremost, I love how the line "saw you from the bottom of the staircase" is a reference to the song on Sports called "I Think You Were in My Profile Picture Once," signifying that this is either part of that story or just a nod to their previous work. And lastly, I wish Sean had some more singing parts in Modern Baseball. His performance on verse 2 is so compelling and delivered in such a fun way. way. His lyrics are similar to Bren and Jake's, but are different enough to create a noticeable contrast in the best way possible. If I absolutely had to find one thing to complain about regarding this album, it would be that Sean needs a couple more verses. Even if he was just on one more song, I would be completely satisfied. The remaining 2 tracks we'll be discussing are both Jake songs, Two Good Things and Pothole. In Two Good Things, Jake discusses the things that he currently has going on in his life. He's in a band, a relationship, and has 2 jobs. He feels like all of these things aren't that big of a deal and shouldn't overwhelm him, as he says, mathematically, that can't be more than one end of a candle. When both ends of a candle are lit, that is symbolic of hard, excessive work, but when it's his time to shine, he's not ready for it. Using a baseball analogy, bottom of the 9th, can't find my socks. He continues the fitting baseball analogy into the next verse saying, I'm stuck between 2 good things, but I just want to get out. My interpretation of out is of course him saying that he wants to get out like in baseball, and what he means when he says that is get out of the stress of these 2 things. So it's not that he doesn't like the girl or doesn't enjoy playing in his band, he just simply wants to be alleviated from the stress of all of it for just a bit. Like on Sports, Jake closes the album once again. Track 12 of 12 is called Pothole, a somber, honest track with a music video to match. We see Jake walking down the street with a guitar and an overwhelming sense that he's currently processing a lot in his mind and coming to terms with many things that he'd probably rather not. As time goes on, this has become my favorite song on the album because the more you listen to it, the more you notice, and the more you notice, the better it gets. The opening lines have always touched me, as you can just feel how painful it is for Jake to not be where he wants to be in his current relationship. The fossils of my footsteps will be unearthed at a far-off date unknown. Impressed in concrete after walking home alone after walking you home. If Jake was truly where he wanted to be in his relationship, he probably wouldn't walk her home and then walk home alone. They'd walk home together and then sleep in the same bed together. It gets progressively sadder as he tells us that the map had faded out, but I could have sworn I noted every stride. I guess the rain hit before the ink could dry. Before all of his life plans that he had made with this girl could unfold, something troublesome happened in their relationship, making him unable to pursue the original course of action. But you are the ember of my heart, whether you like that or not, is the sweet, endearing final line on this outstanding album. No matter what happens, Jake will always love this girl. Even if she leaves him and the relationship doesn't pan out, it doesn't matter. His love for her will still be present. I think it's a really sweet way to wrap things up and puts a pretty little bow on this standout closer. You're Gonna Miss It All created a storm that no one saw coming. And to this day, I still couldn't be happier for Jake, Bren, Ian, and Sean for achieving what they wanted and more. The best part about making this series is putting myself back in the headspace I was when I first heard these albums and seeing how I've grown and how the world has changed. Modern baseball may be gone, but their spirit is stronger than ever. Each day I see someone on Twitter or Instagram saying how much they miss MoBo or how they got into them recently and how sad they are that they'll never get a chance to see them live. And as much as that makes me sad, it also makes me very happy. While they may be gone, they are far from being forgotten. Bands this special never fade away. The final episode in this trilogy will of course be on Holy Ghost. So leave any suggestions below of things you want me to talk about as I begin writing that video. And just really quick, I've had some people say that they want me to make a video on their EP, The Perfect Cast, and discuss some of their more rare songs such as Voting Early and tracks of that nature. So let me know if that's something that you want. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great week.